If people actually knew this shame that I have, no one would ever love me, no one would ever accept me, no one would ever want to hang out with me, be my friend, they would outcast me. That was the internal conversation. If they knew this shame and insecurity of mine.
But I love that sort of the people who care don't matter and the people who matter don't care.
And I feel like, man, I'm just getting better every time.
Yeah.
Because I'm coachable, I'm taking feedback, I've invested in it, I keep showing up, and I'm just enjoying the little wins.
People always want to know, how do you come back from adversity when you reach the dream and then the dream bursts? How do you come back? How do you get over that? And how do you come back and be successful again?
Yeah, well, I can share how I did it. For me, it was about 1.5 years of breakdown and confusion and maybe a little depression, sleeping on my sister's couch, unsure and unclear what I wanted to do. So what I did is what I knew best, which is sports. What do I need to be a great athlete? I need to have a great coach. So at that time, I started looking for mentors and coaches to guide me in life, in business, and just being a better man, all these things. I was 23, 24 at the time. And so first step for me was finding mentors with a model that I could mimic, finding a mentor that had some type of life or business or career that I could model and mimic myself. And I found 3 of those men early on to kind of coach me and guide me and give me feedback. That was step 1. The second thing was just figuring out, okay, I need to shed this identity that I was living in. I was holding on to being this athlete and living this dream. The dream has died. I can't keep holding on to something that's dead. I need to grieve it. I need to experience the loss, the death, and let it go and move on into something else and recreate a new vision for my life. That was really hard for me, creating a new vision.
Yeah.
Just because it was something that was the only thing I focused on. The only thing I thought about was playing sports.
And to have that end at 23, at least at 35, you go ahead at 12 years. And how many years did you have of success?
I only had a year. Yeah, I mean, a year playing professionally. I mean, I played 4 years in college, and then I played professionally for 1 year, but I got injured as a rookie.
Yeah.
So it was, when the dream gets cut short, it's challenging. It's sad. There's a loss. There's an identity loss. There's a dream loss, all these things. For me, I took it really challenging and really hard. But recreating a new vision, having some guides and mentors to support, to have a model to see, okay, that's something that I could be inspired by, what they've created 20 years away from now. It's something that I could be interested in. They have this skill, they've built that business, they have this family life. Okay, there's something I can hold on to and think about. And creating a vision, what do I want for this next year? So I started just getting clear on, okay, some goals, some simple goals. I want to get off my sister's couch.
Yeah.
What do I need to do? I need to make $3,000 a month. How do I do that? And breaking that part down. That was the first couple steps for me. And then I really started to think of early on in my teens, I started creating a fear list.
A fear list?
A fear list.
Okay.
And in order for me to become more fearless, I need to write down my biggest fears, my biggest insecurities, my biggest shames, and then create an experience or some type of challenge to go all in on my biggest fears until the fear disappears. Because I can't be fully in my power and confident if I have all this shame and insecurity. And so every year I think about it, what is my biggest fear, my biggest shame, my biggest insecurity, my biggest embarrassment that I've yet to overcome? I make a list, and then I go tackle those things. And those give me more confidence, more skills, more tools to be a better human.
So what is your biggest fear right now, today?
Right now, well, the thing that was my biggest insecurity, I should say, I feel like I've conquered a lot of fears in the last 8 to 10 years specifically, but the biggest insecurity this year was more of like something I've been letting myself, I haven't been proud of myself for the last 20 years. 20 years ago, I started taking Spanish class in high school and really enjoyed it, but I was horrible at it. And I didn't pick it up quickly, something I struggled with. And as an athlete, I'm used to picking things up quickly, naturally, getting it, being good at things quickly. But that's never happened with Spanish. But every year for the last 20 years, I've said to myself, this is the year I'm going to learn it. And I find some app or book or whatever, it gets too challenging, and then I stop and I give up. For 20 years, I've given up. But there's still something inside me that wants to learn Spanish. But I'm insecure and afraid because I know that I'm not good at it. I know that I'm going to look silly. I'm going to sound stupid. I'm going to stutter over my words when I try it and practice it. And so I said, okay, for 20 years, I've regretted this. At the end of every year, I regret that I didn't do Spanish. And then I say I'm going to do it the next year and I don't do it. So I keep, like, I'm out of integrity with myself. I either need to kill this dream and let it go and not think about it, or I need to go all in on it until I'm not afraid of it anymore. So I finally said, I'm finding someone, I'm paying them in advance, someone who can teach me and mentor me, who can teach me Spanish. And about 6 months ago, I started it, and it's been miserable. It's been miserable. It's been extremely challenging and hard. But I tell you what, something happened a couple of weeks ago, because I keep showing up every morning, 3 times a week for an hour, and I feel like I'm not going anywhere. A couple of weeks ago, I started to get it a little bit, and I was like, oh, I'm actually able to put some things together. And I'm like, okay, if this takes 5 years, it's going to take 5 years. It may not happen overnight. It's not going to. But I'm proud of the effort and the work I'm putting in. And I don't care if I look silly in front of my teacher and these things. Like, I'm learning, I'm growing, and I'm proud of the effort. So for me, that's been a fear. It's like a different level of fear now.
Yeah, and it's so weird that you think of looking silly, because most people find when you can't say their language, they find it enchanting. It's like when people try to, when French people speak English and when English people speak French and we get it wrong. Most people find that really enchanting. They love the fact that you made an effort, even if the effort doesn't quite work. Right. So that's interesting that you would fear looking silly.
I think it was always a fear growing up of, like, being embarrassed in front of my classmates, because I would speak. Our teachers would ask us to read aloud, and I couldn't read. I couldn't read in middle school, high school. I struggled a lot with reading and writing. So I think I was just insecure when it came to, like, books and learning and things like that, challenging subjects. So it kind of reminds me of being back in high school when I got made fun of a lot.
Yeah.
And so it's okay. I haven't dealt with this yet. I haven't overcome this yet. Let me go all in on it.
And no one identified that. I remember years ago, I was working with a very famous footballer, and he said to me, you know, you've changed my life, and it's thanks to you. I said, oh, could you write that out? Write me a little testimonial. And he said, you write it. I said, no, you write it. He said, no, you write it and I'll sign it. I said, I'd rather you wrote it. And he said, I can't write.
Wow.
I was really shocked. He said, well, you know, I was going to be a famous footballer. I left school at 14. My family knew at 7 I'd be an athlete, so I never bothered at school. And he said, and I can't write. And I was so shocked that A, he couldn't write, but B, that the school didn't. I mean, that's not his fault, but how could a school not pick that up in a child and would just let them coast through and not realize he couldn't write? And of course, he couldn't really read. But did your school too? They just didn't notice. They weren't tuned into that. Or were you good at hiding it?
I was very good at lying and cheating and copying people's homework. I was very good at this, which I'm not proud of, but I had to survive.
Yeah, but that's smart.
When I went into 8th grade, they started testing us, and I had a 2nd grade reading level when I went to 8th grade. So I just remember being in 8th grade saying, oh, I'm stupid. I'm dumb. I can't read. I would say these things to myself.
Yeah.
And I'm never going to be good enough in school, like all these things. So obviously, you know, using that language and thinking and believing it didn't support me. But luckily, the school I went to put me into tutoring right away. Like, they were either like, we're going to have to hold you back a few grades, or you need to go in these classes, like these extra tutoring classes. So during lunch breaks, I was with a tutor when everyone was at, like, lunch and recess. I had to go in early after school. I remember my senior year in high school, my English teacher, I was failing senior year English. And she was like, Louis, you can't go play football in college if you don't pass senior year English. Like, they won't let you get you can't apply to school if you don't pass this. And she would work with me every day after class until I got a passing grade. I wasn't great, but I got a passing grade. And so I had that support throughout all of high school and college just to finish and graduate.
And it's so amazing how your childhood stays with you. You can be the most successful, famous, drop-dead gorgeous person in the world, but that residue of what you lived as a child is often in the room with you. People are always shocked about that, how many people who are famous are insecure, nervous, self-conscious, waiting to find out that, oh, you're not that successful person at all.
Exactly. Yeah, for me, over the last, I guess, 10, 12 years, I've been able to overcome a lot of fears in business or marketing and around money and relationships. So every year there's new fears or insecurities that may come up that I get to conquer. And I just try to figure out what is the thing that's holding me back the most this year.
Yeah.
And every time I'm at a new level of life, there's going to be a different type of fear or insecurity that comes up. So I just keep trying to tackle those things so that they don't have power over me.
But if you looked at all the fears, would you say they all have the same theme, that they're all a fear of being rejected or looking stupid or looking silly?
It's the fear of like being judged or people making fun of me and stuff like that from childhood stuff, which I'm fully aware of. And I am able to laugh at myself and have people laugh at me, and I'm much better at it now. But I think it's certain things related to like school. Yeah. Where it's like, okay, learning from a textbook, learning a language was a school subject. And so it's figuring out how do I make it more fun and enjoyable where it's not, I can mess up all day long and it's not a big deal. So it's reframing it and not beating myself up for not figuring it out right away. It's not going to be something I'm going to learn in 2 weeks. It's a language. It's going to take time. And I'm not immersing myself 6 months in another country. I'm doing 3 lessons a week. So it's understanding that this is the small wins on a daily basis. It's going to take years. It's going to take a lifetime to continue to maintain. But for me, I'm really proud of going all in on the fear and being consistent and having a coach and a mentor teach me. And paying in advance so that I know I have to show up and have accountability and doing it and just being like, oh, look how far I've come in 6 months. Like, imagine what I'll do in another 6 months. So those little wins say, you know what? I'm proud of myself. I can do this. Yeah. And I think every year for me, it's important to create a fear list and then go all in on the first couple so that you can become more fearless.
And you're doing salsa as well, aren't you? Learning.
I've been doing salsa for a long time. That was a huge fear.
Tell me about that.
That was probably one of the biggest insecurities because I started that in 2005, 16 years ago, I guess. And I remember I went to this jazz club that my brother was playing at. He was a jazz violinist. And they had salsa dancing at this jazz club one night. So I went back to check it out because I wanted to see what is this salsa dancing thing. And I only seen it on TV and movies. And I went there and I was blown away by, it was pretty much all Latin people who were salsa dancing. And I was this tall, white American guy standing over the crowd. And I was so intimidated. I was in awe and intimidated at the same time by how smooth these guys were, how beautiful these women looked, and the artistry of salsa dancing. And I went back once a week for 3 months and I did not dance at all because I was so afraid. And I started.
But what were you afraid of?
I was afraid of looking bad. I was afraid of
that same thing again.
I was afraid of looking bad. I was afraid of like messing up in front of people. I was afraid that I'd be laughed at by everyone else because I don't know this culture. I'm trying to like learn this stuff where everyone's a pro, it looked like. And I also didn't want to make the girls look bad. I was like, you dance with me, you're going to look horrible because I don't know what I'm doing. So I didn't want to make them look bad. I didn't want to look bad. And I was afraid of getting laughed at and judged. That's been always my biggest fear, the judgment of other people. And it's less and less now. And I remember one girl eventually was like, that I got to know a little bit. She was finally dragged me out on the dance floor after 3 months of going there every week, pulls me out. I'm in the middle. It's like in the middle of a scene of a movie or something. I'm in the middle. It takes me in the middle of the dance floor. All these people dancing around me. The music is going. And she's like, just follow my basic step. And we did the basic step for the next 20 minutes. I just stared down at my feet for 20 minutes and it was like sweating. I was like, man, I'm so horrible. I'm bad. I'm like stepping on her feet. She's like smiling and having fun. And I'm just so tight, like afraid. And then she stops me and she goes, Louis, look up. And I look up, she goes, look around you. And I look around me and the most amazing thing, no one was looking at me.
No one cared. At you.
Everyone was dancing and having fun. And if anything, they might have been like, oh, okay, like, oh, he's a beginner. He doesn't look that good, but let me go back to dancing and having fun. They weren't talking about me. No one cared. If anything, they're probably like, good for him.
Yeah, cool. I mean, I used to teach yoga and I would say to people, just don't look in the mirror. Most yogis, you shouldn't have a mirror in yoga. And no one's looking. They're all too busy trying to do their own treat, trying to stand up, trying to put their leg behind their ear. I mean, they're not looking at you. Yeah. That's not what it's about. But then people say, I can't go to the gym because I'm not fit enough to work out. I can't go to a class because I'm able to get it right. I couldn't go to Zumba. but no one's looking at
No
you.
one
They're far
cares.
too busy. They don't care. It's like, I love that sort of, the people who care don't matter, and the people who matter don't care.
That's it.
Because people just salute you for trying, for turning up, for having a go, and dancing is about fun. But it's interesting that twice in the first 10 minutes you've mentioned that same fear, the fear
Yeah.
of getting it wrong, of looking silly, of being laughed at. But I also know you've taken up boxing, so
I did. That
tell
was
me
another
about
thing that I
that.
took up this year as well, because I was like, I need a new challenge. I've done lifting, I've done all these different things, but I was like, I feel like I need a new challenge where I have a beginner's mind. Mm-hmm. Because when I started salsa dancing, when I started Spanish about 6 months ago, like anytime I start something new that I'm afraid of or that I'm not good at, I just know that I gained so much confidence in that journey of applying that skill, of learning that skill. So I've done, almost 10 sessions, and it's amazing, because what I did is I said, I need the best trainer I can find. So I found an amazing British guy who lives here, who's an Olympian for London or for the UK, and a professional fighter. He's an amazing trainer. And I said, I need to find the best mentor, because it'll accelerate my learning curve and I'll gain more confidence quickly. And the first few sessions, I was horrible. I mean, I looked so bad, terrible, tight, like all these things. My footwork was off. It felt like I was salsa dancing again for the first time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But like I went again today, and I feel like, man, I'm just getting better every time.
Yeah.
Because I'm coachable. I'm taking feedback. I've invested in it. I keep showing up, and I'm just enjoying the little wins.
Yeah, and again, no one's looking at you to see what you're doing wrong. They're looking to see what you're doing right.
Absolutely, yeah.
So here's a question for you, because you have this fear of looking silly, but you've written 2 books. Mm-hmm. Tell me how you did that, because most people who write, when they're writing, think, oh gosh, I hope it doesn't get rejected. What if nobody likes it? And people think writers just sit down and write, and a lot of writers really struggle with how the audience is going to perceive what they're writing, even as they're writing it. And a lot of writers, amazingly, dump 80% of what they've written, keep going back and doing it again.
Really?
Yeah.
How did I do it?
So tell me how you wrote your first book.
I think I've always been more inspired and led by creating and my goals than my fears. Mm-hmm. So even if I'm afraid, I feel like eventually I'll do what it takes to overcome it by putting something out there. And I think the book would have been a dream of mine for many, many years, probably 6 or 7 or maybe 8 years, where I was like, one day I want to write a New York Times bestseller. And I want to prove to myself that a dumb kid who couldn't read and write that well can go do something like this. And that drove me. I was like, I want to prove this to myself, but I want to create something that serves other people. And I think I was a little, even then, that was back probably like, what was that, 6 years ago now, the first book. I was definitely reactive to negative reviews.
Yeah,
that
I was
first
going
book.
to ask you that. So
the first book, I was like, gosh, this person has no clue how much effort I went into this, what I created here, who are they? So I definitely had a defensive mind. And I learned quickly after that book to stop trying to defend myself with my work.
yeah.
I had another coach who saw me, this was probably 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago, around that time. I was very defensive on Twitter or Instagram comments or whatever. Anytime someone critiqued me, it was like I had to convince them that they were wrong. And he saw this one day and he called me and he was like, Lewis, why are you engaging in these negative comments? Why are you trying to defend yourself? You're wasting your time and energy trying to defend yourself. Just thank them for the feedback and move on. Or don't reply.
Yeah.
Either one. But defending a negative comment is not going to do you any good. It's only going to hurt you more.
Yeah.
Focus on the people that are inspired. Take the feedback and see if there's anything true there and apply it if it makes sense. But otherwise, don't engage. So I've learned over many years of like pain and, holding on to this like defensiveness that it doesn't work for me anymore. So it took a while.
Yeah, when my first book came out, it got so many amazing reviews. People wrote to me and said, you're paying for these reviews. It's not possible. How could you have this is all paid for. You bought all these reviews. So when I got a bad one, I was like, oh, I'm so glad I've got a horrible one going, I hate that book and I hate the writer, because now it's more balanced. So I was actually really, I thought, I need to pay one to give me a bad review so that everyone would think I paid someone to give me all these good reviews.
Right.
But then you wrote a second book.
Yeah.
Knowing, of course, people have this weird belief that if you become rich or famous or successful, your life's a dream. And that there is no more rejection, there is no more difficulty, there is no more issues.
Struggle, yeah.
And of course it's not true. And to write a book or put yourself anywhere in the public eye, like I work with a lot of actors, and I say, look, you have to be able to deal with rejection. Sometimes you get rejected. I mean, when my little girl was a baby, she was a model. She was so amazing. She had masses of hair. And they said, oh, no, she's too pretty. When you model baby clothes, the baby can't be cuter than the clothes.
Oh my gosh.
So she got rejected for being too pretty. Yeah, she did a lot of stuff, but she couldn't model baby clothes. They said, she's so gorgeous. They'll just look at her and not the clothes. And then a few of my classes that I went for a role, and they went, oh, no. When I called them back, they said, no, you were too beautiful. You would outshine the leading lady.
Wow.
One of my clients got rejected from being a dancer with Kylie Minogue, and they said, you're too tall. Kylie's dancers can't be too tall. Madonna always dances with guy backing dancers because she's not tall. But often we think, you don't like me. And someone says, well, I don't like you because you're too tall, too beautiful, too smart. But people don't see that. So obviously, when you read all the reviews and try to reason with somebody who's unreasonable and just doesn't like you for no other reason than they don't like you. What happened with the second book? Were you over that by then, or did you still go back and look at the reviews?
No, I was more over that by then. I think, it's interesting. I remember, I think I had another issue. For like a day, I was upset because the book didn't hit the New York Times list. And I was thinking, these people have no clue how much harder I worked on the second book and how much more meaningful it was and all these things. So I think for a day, I was like, oh, man. I was kind of just bummed out that I didn't get the result. The expectation didn't happen of what I was thinking. And then it took about a day or two until I was like, you know what? I need to get back to focusing on the mission, not about like me accomplishing the goal, but focusing on service. And that mentality shifted me back to not an expectation hangover, but okay, we're just going to keep helping people and see what happens from it.
And you were really real about your childhood in that book.
Absolutely,
I mean, you took the lid off everything, didn't you?
Yeah.
What was that like, really exposing even the abuse and the things that happened to you?
This was the scariest thing I can think that I've ever done, was talk about being sexually abused. And I talked about it originally 8 years ago in a small group, an emotional intelligence workshop that I was in after like the second week. And it felt like death. It felt like I was about to die.
Wow.
Sharing, this is all I could imagine. It felt like if people actually knew this shame that I have, no one would ever love me, no one would ever accept me, no one would ever want to hang out with me, be my friend, they would outcast me. That was the internal conversation, if they knew this shame and insecurity of mine. And so I think that's why I held on to it for 25 years until I found this workshop that I went to that created many, many moments for me to finally get to open up and kind of peel back the layer of my emotions and my shame. And I did it once there, and it felt after I shared it in this experience, so many of the men from the room who were in there came up to me afterwards and were like saying the most incredible things, like, you're my hero. This happened to me when I was a kid or whatever, and I never had the courage to talk about it. Thank you for talking about it. You're giving me the courage. And many men shared that with me, which I felt like, okay, I feel safer sharing it to an environment of people that had something similar in common. But no one else can know about this. I still was insecure and worried about what people would think about me outside of this context. Like, what about my friends and family? Would they accept me? What about my audience? All these things. After about 6 months, I realized I started sharing with it one by one to friends, family members, and I felt more and more free the more I talked about it. The more I felt like, oh, people accepted me, or I'm accepting myself, whether they accept me or not. And I felt like the final thing I needed to do was talk about it publicly. And I don't recommend people share their shame publicly, but since I had a platform and I was talking about these types of things with other people, I felt it necessary to open up on my podcast about it about 7 years ago, I guess it was. And it's still the most downloaded thing and most, viewed page on my website, me opening up about it.
Sure.
And it was, again, it felt like another death. I feel like I'm going to die.
But it was really another life.
Exactly.
It brought you to life because the basis of all friendship is we choose people who share our vulnerabilities. People don't seem to know that. The basis of all friendship is we pick people who share our vulnerabilities. When I have clients who come in and go, well, I just pretend I'm perfect. I tell everyone I've got a great weekend, I'm so busy, and actually I sit at home with my cat drinking vodka because I don't want to let anyone know that I'm lonely or sad. It's like, but then that's how you make friends. We like people.
Why is that? Why do we connect with people that have like a similar shame or vulnerability or fear?
Because they're real. We like people who are real and authentic. And so people, in my experience anyway, all of my clients who either pretend to be perfect or appear to be perfect are without question the unhappiest, but also the loneliest too.
Really?
I mean, a lot of my clients will say, my first wife was a model and that was like having a racehorse. I mean, the amount of work and effort and money, and now my wife is normal, and it's such a relief. Such a relief to just be with someone warm and normal, relaxed, and funny. Yeah. So I think just people can't relate to someone who isn't real. We look at people and we think, it's like when you go to school and you're a kid and you go, hey, I like Barbie, I like Barbie, I like green pasta, I like green pasta. And then they go, I like you because you're like me and I'm like you. So even as children, we look. And then as we get older, we go, do you like that football team? Is that your favorite band? Is that your favorite show on Netflix? Oh, you're like me. And when people say, oh, I hated that show. Oh, I never eat that. Then we can't relate. So the minute you open up and share your vulnerability, because we all have vulnerabilities, now you're real and people can relate.
Right.
And when you're not real, people can't relate. So here's a question that fascinates me, because you've talked about this fear of looking silly, getting it wrong, making a mistake, which of course is nothing more than the fear of being rejected, the most common fear in the world, because not long ago we understood one thing: to make it in life, I've got to find connection, avoid rejection, I've got to belong to the tribe. So how do you deal with the haters? Because even I find that strange. You go out there and you think, hey, I'm going to teach somebody something nice, share something that helps. When someone comes online and says something really like mean and spiteful and so far from who you are. So I'd love to know what you do with the haters, the real vicious ones.
I used to take it very defensively and want to win them over in these things and make them wrong.
Yeah.
And now I realize I just can't do that. And I need to focus on the people that I am supporting, the people that my message is lifting up. And if someone's really hating on something, is there any truth in there?
Yeah.
Is there anything that's like, you know what? Like I saw a bunch of comments on one of my videos recently on YouTube, a lot of negative comments that is like, you're interrupting the person too much. And if it's one or two times, I'm going to be like, okay, maybe it doesn't work for me. But if it's a bunch of times, okay, maybe there's some truth there.
Yeah.
And I get excited and I interrupt people sometimes. I'm like, well, tell me more.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, if it's not working for the majority of people, then maybe there's some truth and maybe I can try that next time better. But I don't need to get defensive anymore because it's wasting my energy.
Yeah.
So I really, when someone's super vicious, I just ignore it now.
Yeah.
I just really ignore it, or I say, thank you for the feedback. And for me, that helps me stay true to my mission and not spend all this time and energy on something that's not supporting me.
I find it's great to share it. I tell people, oh, guess what someone said about me?
That's good.
They said that you shouldn't wear those shirts. You're far too old, and stop waving your hands around, and and your English accent, and you speak too slow.
Yeah.
I probably do speak too slowly. But I find that if you share it with them, go, guess what someone said about me today? It obviously can't affect you because you're sharing it.
Right.
Like I told everyone, this woman
funny.
who wrote to me and said, you're so old, and why don't you dress your age? I'm like, I always thought a silk shirt was kind of ageless, but it's if you share it,
That's good.
it really takes the energy out because you're sharing. You're saying, "Guess what happened?" And this person said that.
I think it's funny.
And
You can laugh with it.
Yeah.
We did this. I don't know, maybe 4 months ago. We did a video that I posted with like 20 nasty things about me that people said. Kind of like Jimmy Fallon does his mean tweets.
Isn't it great?
We did that ourselves, and I could just laugh at them.
Yeah.
And just put it out there. And I think people were just like laughing with me and like, oh, this is funny. And we like you more.
Yeah.
Because you can talk about it openly. It's not,
because you're being vulnerable again.
Yeah.
You're not pretending. And also you'll find that when you share, other people come and go, I can't believe somebody said that. They clearly don't
crazy.
know you.
Yeah. And then,
you think, oh, I feel better now.
Yeah.
I feel so much better.
Exactly.
So it's interesting that you've had this fear of being rejected, that you've had it all your life. When do you think it will go away?
I think there's always going to be new levels of it.
Yeah.
I feel like in my business, I don't know, I don't feel a rejection, like a fear of rejection there, but that's why I keep looking for it myself, because I don't want to feel it reactive to anything. I never want to get too comfortable. I always want to be putting myself in a situation where I don't feel comfortable because I don't want to be rejected by that. That means I need to go do that thing.
Yeah.
And if I'm always thinking ahead of it and trying to apply that, then it's not going to hold me back. And so I don't know. I feel really good about, like, if my girlfriend rejected me, I actually feel pretty good.
You would? Why is that?
I mean, I think because I've gotten to a place, maybe it's my age, maybe it's from like just past breakups and pain, maybe it's from just healing trauma and all these things, the journey that I've been on.
Yeah.
I just feel like I'm finally okay with myself. I finally accept myself for who I am. And if something doesn't work out or if someone rejects me, then it wasn't meant for me.
Yeah, and they don't know you either.
Yeah, and it wasn't the right fit, and I wish them well, and I'll find something that's a better fit, that's a better match. So I think I've just gained a lot of perspective in that, where it's like, I want to be happy. I'm happy with my own company. I'm happy alone. I don't need a lot of things. If I lose all my money, like, I can be happy alone. And that knowing and that presence around that energy, I just feel a lot more confident if I get rejected. And so that's why I'm not afraid of it as much anymore.
Yeah, I'm really pleased to hear that.
Yeah, because I just am like...
Because the only way to really be rejected, the only person who can really and truly reject you is you. People can say things that are mean and hurtful, but you don't have to let them in. They're having a bad day. So your mind, when other people are mean to you, can always they're having a bad day.
Right, exactly.
They've just been dumb.
Exactly.
They've just got fired. But when you reject you, the mind can't rationalize because it must be true.
That's the worst thing.
It's the worst thing to reject yourself. But of course, no one has the power to reject you except for you. And yet people are so bad at it. I look awful in this. I sucked at that. I messed that up. That was terrible. I could have done better. I should have prepared. I'm such a loser.
Right.
And so we can deal with other people's rejection because we can rationalize they're having a bad day. But when we do it ourselves, it really goes in. So have you stopped doing that to yourself?
Yeah.
Well, that's good. So it doesn't matter about everyone else as long as you've stopped doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good.
And it's a practice. It's a daily practice.
Yeah,
You know?
it is. It takes a while. It starts off being what you do, and then like everything, like boxing or salsa, eventually it becomes who you are, and you can do it. You stop thinking about it, and you just
automatic.
do it. Yeah.
It's automatic. What's the thing that at your stage of your life that you're still afraid of, or your fear of rejection or insecurity or shame?
Yeah, shame, insecurity. You know, for me, it's interesting because I've just got in this situation where we went to England, our lovely house got completely flooded, had to be totally refurbed, and we just actually moved from a house in London to an apartment. I said to my husband, I don't want to deal with builders for 5 more years. We are not doing anything to this house in LA.
Yeah.
I never want to see a builder. And so lo and behold, it got flooded. And what I've noticed is I walk down to meet them every day singing that song by Bob Marley, Everything Little Thing's Gonna Be All Right. Because it's always like, oh my God, this is a nightmare. Oh, this is hell. This is driving me crazy. This builder's making me want to rip my hair out. And I noticed that I don't do that. I go, this is a situation. This is a challenge. This guy is a compulsive liar, but I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I'm so pleased that I do that because it hasn't been easy at all. I mean, like 3 weeks ago, it's like, well, you know, this is a 2-month job. We're 7 months in. It doesn't look like anything. It's like there's one person painting away. It's like, but you just have to get to that stage of not using negative language. So what I'd be afraid of, since you asked me, is actually doing the opposite, because then I'd be a fake, because I'm always telling people, look, it's not the event, it's how you feel about it. It's not what happens, it's how you describe it. It's when you go, this is a nightmare, this is hell on earth.
This is ruining my life.
So I'd be afraid of being a fraud and not walking my talk. But also I understand, hey, I'm walking to my $5 million house that's being refurbed on the insurance company. This is someone's fantasy dream country. People say, I'll swap. You know, I sort of had to stop telling people because you think, I haven't got any problems. What am I complaining about? The insurance company rented me a nice house on a nice canal with nice neighbors. But I would be my biggest fear would be, I think my biggest fear would be illness, followed by not walking my talk, not being congruent, preaching one thing and doing another.
Being out of integrity.
Yeah. So a lot of my friends are relationship experts. Say, people think you have the best relationship in the world, and they always come to the restaurant just from having a screaming fight with my husband and go, well, I thought your life was perfect. So I think, that would probably be my only fear. My only big fear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you afraid of rejection at all or no?
Do you know, I'm really not, because I realize that the only person you can really reject me is I can look at them and go, oh my God, you look terrible, but I wouldn't ever do that. So I'm not scared of rejection. I'd be more scared of loss than rejection.
Loss, like losing family, friends,
somebody
and people,
dying, somebody getting sick. I lost my mother, my father, and one of my dearest friends all in the same 3 months. But it wasn't actually as hard as I thought it would, because my dad when he was dying, was saying, I've had a lovely life. My mum was saying the same thing. My friend, it was harder. But loss is harder to come back from. When you get rejected, you can find someone else that doesn't reject you. Goes, oh, that's not true. They don't even know you. Don't listen to them. It's like going home to your mum and going, Mum, my boyfriend doesn't. Because, well, he's an idiot. Doesn't know what he's missing.
Lots of guys out there, yeah.
Yeah, but loss is much harder, and all pain is linked to loss.
Really?
I guess with you, it's that loss of face, looking silly.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd be much more worried about losing something, like losing my husband, or people I love getting ill. But I don't focus on that too much.
Right.
But I don't fear rejection. I guess also, when you stand on stage every day and speak to thousands of people, you can't do that if you fear rejection. It wouldn't be possible. Yeah. You have to get on there and do it. And when you write books, someone's going to write and go, I hate your book.
No matter what.
And I hate you. And I hate the way you dress. I hate everything you say. And you just go, okay, that's fine. Someone said to me, you're just Tony Robbins in a skirt. I'm like, well, that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Right.
They, no, but nothing you do is original. But I know my stuff is original. So I didn't let that in.
Right.
Because that's what
Why
people don't
in?
understand. It's letting it in as a choice. You get to choose. Someone said something, oh, shall I let it in? Or go, oh, you're having a bad day.
Yeah.
You're not a happy person. When one particular person who's decided to attack me, I always think of it as that poor girl. They're going, where is that horrible person? Let me see what I go, that poor girl. I wonder what that poor girl is doing, because it makes me feel different about her. Instead of thinking, wow, that horrible person who wants to write things, I just go, that poor girl, so unhappy. What a shame to live like that, because no one says, my life is so great, who can I diminish today?
Right.
You have to imagine the life of someone who's a troll. I'm going to wake up, go and open my laptop and go, who can I make feel absolutely horrible about themselves?
To try to make myself feel better. Yeah.
But it's because they feel so bad anyway. Their reasoning is, I feel bad, my life's miserable, I want your life to be miserable too, and now I feel equal to you. So a miserable man finds a more miserable man, then he feels a bit better. We should actually say a miserable person tries to hang out with a miserable person and they feel better. But here's another question for you, and it's a very important question. In a world where, you kind of work for yourself, you're your boss, you're your own HR, you're your own feedback. How do you motivate yourself when you don't have someone cracking the whip behind you?
It's going to kind of sound weird, but I just feel like ever since I was younger, I've always had something inside that's like been drawing me to create more, be more, do more. And I still have that feeling every day. Like I'm not finished. Like something's not finished, and life is like, could be over in a moment.
Yeah.
Like it can be over tomorrow. Would I be proud of myself, of who I've become, what I've created, the human being that I am? Am I proud of myself now? Yes, but I also have a lot more that I want to create.
Yeah.
And so it's a yes and it's like, okay, so I live in an urgent state of mind.
Good.
So that I can just be happy. If something happens to me, you know what? I've given my all. I've given everything that I can at the stage that I'm at, and I'm happy with that. As opposed to, like, the reason why I started picking up Spanish about 6 months ago is because I really was just like, if I die today, I'll be that'll be the thing I'm not proud of. That I've been thinking about wanting to do this for 20 years.
Yeah.
And it got too hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I made the excuse of time. I was afraid of looking silly. It was just like so much energy. These excuses I kept living with for 20 years made me sick inside.
Yeah, of course.
Like made me feel like out of integrity with myself. And that's why I was like, I either need to not be drawn to this dream anymore and kill it, die. It needs to die, or I need to go all in.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, I don't want to die this year or in 70 years, 50 years, and keep that dream inside that never came out of me, or at least tried. And if I do this for a year or two and I'm like, you know what, I actually don't care about it anymore, great. Then I can stop because I don't care, but I still care.
Yeah.
I still want to do it. And so that's what makes me continually creating more, building more, doing more, being more, and overcoming more, because it just feels like it's inside of me and it's got to come out.
And Wayne Dyer said it so wonderfully when he said, don't die with your music still inside you. Such a poignant thing to say, because I remember thinking, you know, I really need to crack on and create my school. And I remember him saying that. And of course, then sadly he did die. But his music,
he sang for years, decades.
His music was definitely out of him. And of course, when you create something, your energy goes on forever. So you can still listen to Wayne or listen to Frank Sinatra, and the energy is still there. So you have what I call the bounce back factor. Like, you know, I say you've got to be like a big rubber ball. How good is your bounce back factor? If you want to work for yourself and have your own podcast, your own audience, your own book, and your own startup, you must be able to have the bounce back factor, because success is not never failing. It's how fast you come back.
Because every day in my business, it feels like there's a problem. You
Does
guys
it?
know. I mean, it feels like there's a breakdown.
Yeah.
And it's my job. It's never a smooth day.
Yeah.
A lot of things can go well, but there's always like, but we had a problem with this person today.
Sure.
Or
And the bigger you get, the more problems you get.
And the more people on your team, there's more challenges.
Sure.
And you're like, people are coming and going and training and legal stuff. It's just like, what is this problem? And I feel like the more emotionally resilient that I can become, the faster I can bounce back.
Yeah.
It's when I haven't dealt with my traumas, my pains, my shames, I stick to the challenges more.
Yeah.
I analyze them more. I'm like, I get offended more.
Yeah.
When someone does something, I take it more personally, as opposed to say, okay, this is unfortunate, this isn't fun, but what's the next steps? You know, less emotionally attached to this feeling attacked, and more of like, okay, this sucks and let's move on.
Yeah. And of course, understanding that the bigger a life you have, the more problems you have. And your problem is someone else's fantasy
dream.
They say, I switch places with you, Lou. I'd love to have your problem.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Give me your platform. Give me the audience. All these things.
Yeah. So we have to be really careful. I find that when I work with huge rock stars who complain, I always want to say to them, you know, you're trampling on someone's dream here. Oh, it's so difficult to have to fly around the world with a band. And
it's so hard to be in front of 50,000 screaming fans.
I never have any time to myself. And I have met many of them who can't leave the hotel room. They can't go anywhere because they get mobbed. But you still can't complain about that.
Yeah, and I also like, I can have compassion and empathy for people that have a lot of pressure and a lot of weight and responsibility. Because someone was saying to me yesterday, like, Louis, you give so much, and I know the same is for you. It's like you give so much to so many people. You're in service to your audience, your team. There's a lot of responsibility. And he was like, who gives to you? Like, what do you give to yourself? And are you constantly finding ways to do that? So maybe a rock star, it's stressful, or they have no alone time, or this and that. It's like, okay, well, what can you create so you can fill yourself back up? What can you do to support yourself? Yeah,
and I think we get a lot back. I mean, when you give, you receive. It's like taking a breath. If you give a breath, you have to take one, and if you take one, you got to give one, and that's balance. So you can't really give without taking. You probably could take without giving, but when you're in the business of helping people. You give, and I get so many people come up and say, you changed my life, you saved my life, I love your book, I love your YouTube channel. I always think I have the best job in the world because I get such lovely feedback, as you do too.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's amazing, and that's why we do it, So we do have the best job in the world.
And I think that all of us are addicted to something in life.
Yeah.
And if we're going to be addicted to anything, it might as well be serving people.
Yeah, is that what you're addicted to?
I'm thinking, yeah, because I don't do alcohol or drugs or anything like that. I do like sugar, but I think I'm probably addicted to growing, improving, and helping others.
That's nice.
Yeah, and I feel like you get a lot of happiness when you grow.
Yeah, you do.
And by helping other people.
Well, that's it. We all have the same needs, certainty, diversity, connection, significance, growth, and contribution. And there aren't that many careers. Weirdly enough, hairdressers and plumbers meet all of those needs every day.
Right.
Because people give them such feedback and want them so much. Mm-hmm. But we were very lucky when you're in the business of helping people that you get connection, significance, growth, contribution.
Every day's different. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's funny. You said you're addicted to serving, and I would say I'm addicted to making a difference. I don't know if it's an addiction, but as I answer your questions, I'm answering mine. Yeah, making a difference.
Yeah.
It's a really nice thing to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you're going to be addicted to anything, you might as well try to make an impact around the gift that you have.
Yeah, and I always say, well, when I work with addicts, I go, look, it's okay to be an addict. Just get addicted to something good like Pilates or yoga or water. You can choose a better addiction. Don't fight the, I'm an addictive personality. You can get addicted to anything.
Rechannel it.
Get addicted to running, for instance, because that's very addictive.
Absolutely.
Or juicing. My husband, I got for a while, was very addicted. I'd wake up in the morning and hear that NutriBullet going, and he was so addicted to it.
It's good.
But then I think it blew up, and that was the end of that addiction. So here's another question. So you motivate yourself. This is my question. How do you motivate yourself when there's just you? You're running everything. Mm-hmm. See, but you kind of answered that, but answer it again, because so many people I see now want to have their own business, but their blocks are, I'm scared of failing, I'm scared of taking risks, and how do I motivate myself? So I'm going to ask you, did you have that? Scared of failing, scared of taking risks, and can't...
My fear was judgment or rejection, opinions of other people.
Yeah.
The fear of success and failure was not the fear for me.
Yeah.
Because in sports, you fail a lot in sports, and daily in practice you're failing, you're dropping the ball, you're missing the shot, whatever. You're constantly failing, and that's your feedback loop. Okay, I need information to improve in order to achieve.
Yeah.
And I'm going to fail in order to achieve. So I learned through sports early on that I wanted to succeed. I wasn't afraid of it. It's what I wanted, and I knew that failure was a part of the process to get me there. I was more afraid of the opinions and judgments of other people.
Yeah.
If I looked silly, if I failed in a weird way, it's like about what they would say about me. And so it took a long time to overcome that. But the thing that motivates me on how I motivate myself, it comes down to really probably two things. One, will I be proud of myself with the results and the person I'm becoming? Will I be proud at the end of the day? And two, will I make people proud of me when I'm no longer here? Will they be proud? The people that cared about me the most, will they say, you know what? That's a model and a man that I'm inspired by. And I think, what is it going to take for me to be proud of myself? And if I die tomorrow, that others would be proud to talk about me, then I feel like that's a pretty good life.
It is. So what's the next step for you? What's next in the pipeline? Because I know, as you said, you're always growing. And again, we think I'm going to do this, but then our potential expands as we move towards it. So we can never know what we can be, what our potential is, because it moves constantly. But that's just a great thing.
Every year it moves.
Yeah, every day.
The thing that I think about is like, what's the impossible that seems so unrealistic?
Mm-hmm. And what is it?
I don't know fully yet, but the mission has been to reach 100 million people weekly to help them improve their life.
Wow.
And so that is one thing, accomplishing
100
that 100 million weekly. We're probably 15 million monthly right now. So how do we get that to 100 million a month?
Yeah.
Then 100 million a week? It seems so big, but it also seems like very possible if certain things happen.
Because you think big. Yeah.
So that's one thing. And
that must keep you very motivated, because you're thinking of the numbers.
What do I need to do? How do I need to, who do I need to become? What skill? Who do I need to hire? Like, what do I need to do to get there?
Yeah, so what you're doing is you're always in expansion.
Absolutely.
You see, that's what I see with you. You don't expand and contract. I've done that, so don't do anything else. Or I've done that, so that's it. You expand. You're always expanding
what's next?
towards
what else can I be proud
next?
of?
Yeah.
Because just because I've become something greater doesn't mean I'm going to stop there.
Yeah.
Like, there's always more I can contribute and offer. So
yeah.
every year I think about the thing that, like, man, what is really scary or seems like impossible or just like so unrealistic. Mm-hmm. I'm like, shoot, we got to go try to figure that out. We got to go try to do it.
Yeah,
and if we fail,
course.
then we fail. But
Yeah.
who do we become in that process? I think that's the thing that I'm inspired by.
And you can't really fail. The only risk in life is not to take the risk. That's when you failing to take a risk is when you fail. If you take a risk and it doesn't work, you learn something.
Absolutely.
And we've all done that. But
I love the meme. There's a meme online, like a quote with a baby that says something like, babies fall like 1,000 times or thousands of times in their childhood, learning to walk, from crawling to walking. And at no point does a baby say, maybe this walking thing isn't for me.
Yeah.
They never say, I'm just going to crawl the rest of my life.
Yeah,
they always figure it out.
I have a picture of my daughter the first time I think I gave her a yogurt to eat herself.
Yogurt?
Yogurt. Yogurt. And it's in her hair, it's on her chin, it's on her clothes. She got very little of it in her mouth, but she had great fun trying. But no baby says, I can't get to grips with this eating.
I'm going to stop
You
eating.
do it. You just have to feed me for the rest of my life. No baby says, I never quite got to learn how to pee in a toilet. It was just too complicated.
Yeah, let me wear a diaper my whole life.
Yeah, we learn half of what we learn in our whole life before we're 5 years old, which is extraordinary. But yeah, and I tell that to people too. Look, you were born wired to succeed at walking, talking, getting up, standing up. And you haven't lost that. It's still in you, and you can reactivate it, regenerate it, and remanifest it if you only knew how. But so many people have that thing. It's so hard to change. No, it's much harder to stay the same.
Yeah.
It's so scary to risk. No, it's scary not to risk. And we wonder where all these crazy statements come from that make people stay in their shell. I used to tell my classes about the crabs and lobsters, that crabs and lobsters get to a stage where they will die in their shell. Literally, they're too big for the shell, so they have to make a decision. Well, I'm going to have to shed this shell or die. And some of them are so scared they just die, and the others get out of it. But they're very delicate. They've got a membrane, and they bury. And that's why soft shell crabs are so expensive. You've got to go and dig them up because they hide until the new shell comes back. You think, well, if a crab and a lobster can take a risk, why can't you? They risk their life just to come out of their shell and grow a bigger one.
It's painful being broke and playing small. That's painful. It's painful to train and be and make money or build a business and have a great relationship. You have to deal with a lot of things to get there. Either way, there's pain.
Yeah.
So which one do you want?
And most people don't die regretting what they did. They die regretting what they didn't do. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter if you did it and it was wrong or embarrassing or humiliating. It matters if you think,
did it.
At least I tried. I gave it my all. Didn't work out.
Exactly.
Yeah. So more questions for you, because I find a big misconception is that you can't have it all. Nobody can have it all. Something's got to give. There was that great movie called Something's Got to Give. And even if you can have it all, you can't have it all the time. And I don't think that's true, because I certainly have it all. It took me a long time, but I have a wonderful relationship, great career, wonderful relationship with my daughter and her partner. And I know that you have a great career, you're fit, you look good, and you've got a beautiful relationship too. So how do you have it all? Do you believe you have it all? And how do you have it all and keep it?
I think I'm very grateful for where I'm at in my life.
Yeah.
I think I'm always going to want more of myself.
Yeah.
More of myself to expand. Mm-hmm. Whether that's acquiring and accomplishing more, like that'll be a part of it. It's not the mission. But I think that'll be a byproduct of like becoming a greater human being, developing myself, overcoming more challenges, serving more people. That'll be a byproduct, acquiring and accomplishing things like that. But I think the goal is to really, it's to just know that I am everything that I need. It's whether I have it all or not, I am everything.
Yeah, so you do have it all.
I am everything, whether I'm in a great relationship or not. If I'm single, I still have everything that I need. And I appreciate it. And I can have it all. Maybe it's not going to be all in every moment. Maybe there's going to be a breakdown. Maybe there's going to be a breakup. Maybe there's going to be a health scare. but I can always get back to a place of feeling whole and complete,
Yeah.
and the feeling of I have everything I need.
Yeah. So that means you have it all.
I
Because you
it
have
all.
everything you need. Yeah.
And I think when I'm in scarcity or I'm lacking something, then that's a reflection that I'm missing something within myself. Like,
yeah.
I tell my girlfriend, like, listen, if we don't work out in the future, I hope we're together forever. But if for whatever reason you want to break up with me, we don't work out, I'm going to be happy for you and I'm going to be happy for me.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't meant to be.
Yeah.
If we didn't want to be together, I don't want to force something.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be happy with where I'm at. And I'm going to find another partner that's going to elevate my happiness.
Yeah.
But as long as I have it all within myself,
Yeah.
then I feel good. But I do think you can have it all. I just don't know if you can always have it all.
Well,
it
I
took
think,
you
yeah.
a long time. It's
Took me a lot of time.
It's
Yeah.
taking me time, and I think there's still not everything that I want to create, but I'm happy with where I'm at.
It took me time though, because I didn't know then what I know now. If I'd known what I know now when I was 20, I would have had it all when I was 25. But
Right.
maybe you're not supposed to. But it takes a while. That's why I say to people, listen, I did everything the wrong way around. I was a single parent. I got married when I was 50.
Wow.
I did everything the wrong, but it doesn't matter. It's like climbing a mountain. You get to the top, you got the same view however you got up there. But I love saying to people, look, you don't have to do what I did. Take a long time and do everything the wrong way round. You can start really early. But it's a shame people don't believe. They say things like, well, if I have a great career, my relationship will suffer. I won't be there present for my kids. And if I've got a
Right.
great relationship, I won't be able to put time into a business. So some people willingly give up a relationship to devote themselves to their career, or give up a career
Yeah.
because I'd be a terrible mom, and they don't understand that you can have everything.
I think you can have everything if you really schedule your time well.
Yeah.
Because I noticed that my health was not like the way I wanted it to be. I still feel fit and everything, but I was like, you know what? I need to schedule it. I'm going to schedule it at 7 a.m.
Yeah.
And it means I have to go to bed early. It means I can't watch Netflix.
Yeah.
And Spanish isn't priority to me right now, so that's going to be at 8 a.m.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I have to schedule things, and I'm going to work a certain amount. That means I'm going to hire someone else who can replace my time. So you just
Yeah.
have to reorganize your time and your schedule and really plan
Yeah.
carefully in order to have it all.
Yeah, it's certainly a choice. I mean, people don't understand that actually when you say, I choose to go to bed early, I
Right.
choose to get up, I choose to schedule in my work, I choose to
Right.
schedule in my meditation, you're making a choice.
Absolutely.
And then it's easy when you go, I've got to do that, and I
Right.
can't find the time or make the time. Nobody finds time, you create
You
it.
create it, you schedule it,
Yeah.
prioritize it.
So you're a good role model. You're showing people that you can bounce back from your dream was shattered at 23. Your childhood wasn't the idyllic white picket fence, the all-American boy that was adored. It wasn't really, might have looked like that, but it wasn't at all.
Right.
But here you are. You have the bounce back factor, and you feel the fear and you keep going.
Absolutely.
So what would you, if the audience are looking at you, and I hope they are, and saying, wow, I can learn a lot from Lewis because the dream died. You see, Goethe said something I love, every stage is a dream that's dying or one that is coming to birth.
Ooh.
I
Every stage is a dream.
Dream
that's
is a dream
done.
that's dying or one that is coming to birth.
Yeah, it's
so when
interesting.
your dream died, a new one came to birth.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's a beautiful saying, and it's so true. So what would be the advice that you'd give to someone whose dream is dying?
Oh,
Or has died?
I would say don't beat yourself up, number one. I think when my dream died, I
Yeah.
was holding on to it. I was like in denial mode. I was like, no, this is not true. Like, I'm going to go figure it out. I'm going
Yeah.
to heal I'm going to command my wrist to like heal from the
Yeah.
surgery. Like, and that didn't work, right? It just took longer and longer for me to heal. And I was in denial, and I was holding on to the identity that made me feel confident.
Yeah.
And so the first thing is I would say to accept that there's going to be a transition,
Yeah.
and there might be a grieving period.
Actually, funnily enough, sorry to interrupt you, but that is the stages of grief. The first stage is denial. This hasn't happened.
Really?
This person's not really dead. They're going to turn up. I
Right.
can't even delete their number from my
Right.
phone.
This person
and it's
didn't break up with
denial.
me, or yeah.
And then you come to kind of grief, and then you come to often rage, and then acceptance, and then moving on. And you can't,
Interesting.
you have to go through those stages. People try to like go straight to let's get over it, move on, pretend it never
Right.
happened. You got to go through the grief, the sadness, the mourning of the loss.
Yeah.
It's very significant. You have to mourn a loss. And when you've done that, then you. So what you did was actually the most normal thing in the world. Just it hasn't happened. I can't believe it. And then gradually you come to accept it.
Yeah. And for me, it took a while. It took about a year and a half until I was able to like, okay, I'm moving on.
Yeah.
And maybe I wish it would have happened quicker than that. I was doing other things during that time as well. I was reaching out to mentors, but it took about a year and a half till I was finally like, all right, it still hurts. I wish I had this, but it's not there, so I'm moving on.
But if you could look back at your life now and could change it, would you?
No,
Yeah.
I don't want to change anything.
Isn't that great? Me too. I look back and think I'm so glad that my first bit, the first 10 minutes wasn't perfect. I'm glad I wasn't the favorite child because it makes you so determined to do something.
Yeah. I mean, maybe there's things I wasn't proud of that would like, I shouldn't have done that. But I'm like, it all taught me something to who I'm at now. And it makes me more humble now. I think so for me, it'd be that stage. And then I'm just a big fan of having support.
Yeah.
Not trying to do the next thing on your own. When your life is shattered or your dream is shattered or your whatever relationship has shattered, sitting at home is something I did by myself, did not work. Analyzing, ruminating on my thoughts, saying I'm stupid. Why did I do that? I should have did this thing differently. That did not work. Finding support and getting out there. It's probably why AA is so powerful for people. It's because you have support.
Yeah, the support
So I reached out to, that's why I started doing activities. I started salsa dancing after then. And I felt like, okay, I'm around happy people who are dancing. I'm getting active. I found mentors and coaches who were inspiring and they were giving me feedback. I threw myself, another fear was public speaking because I was afraid to be made fun of. So right after that, I joined public speaking class every week for a year and went all in on public speaking because I could not stand in front of 3 people and talk for 5 minutes without stuttering and playing small.
And nobody would believe that now.
I could
Isn't
not.
That funny?
Could not. And there's so many people from that club called Toastmasters that I joined who remember me as this 23, 24-year-old punk, terrified.
Yeah.
Like unable to speak in front of a neutral environment where it's all about positive feedback.
Sure.
Terrified. The first speech was 5 minutes long. It took me 2 weeks to prepare for a 5-minute speech because I was like, what am I going to talk about? What's interesting about my life? I don't know. What am I supposed to say? And by showing up every week for a year, I remember it just got better and better, little by little. And by the end of the year, I was like, oh, I'm a confident speaker now.
Yeah.
So finding those support, finding those coaches, finding friends. I mean, that for me, when I integrated myself back into the world and not just as a shell of myself in my where I was staying, then I was able to get out there and start applying myself.
So what are your 3 tips to master your mind? If you could only pick 3 of your favorite tips, hacks that have worked for you, that have helped you to master your mind.
Number 1 is to heal your shame, heal your trauma, your shame, your pain, your anger, heal the big T, little t traumas of the past.
Okay.
Focus on that because I feel like my life was consumed by my traumas, my reactions, because my mind was not healthy. I didn't have the tools on how to communicate in environments that made me feel defensive, guarded, angry, reactive. And so when events consume and affect my mind so much, I don't have the power over my mind. So learning how to heal, forgive myself, forgive other people, all that stuff, that'd be step 1. Heal the past. Step 2 would be make a list of my biggest fears and go all in on those fears. I believe every time I do that, it just adds another like tool on my tool belt of confidence.
Yeah.
And I feel like, oh, here's a situation that's uncomfortable. Oh, but I've got this tool that I can whip out here and use this, and I've got this strategy, and I've got this coping mechanism, whatever. And I feel confident in more situations in life when I overcome different fears. And then the third one, I would say to master your mind is to be of service. I think when you're of service to other people, it doesn't matter how much. I think it was Roosevelt that said it doesn't matter how people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah.
And one of the greatest superpowers is caring about other people because they will show up for you. They'll fight for you. They'll do anything for you. They'll help you if they feel like you care about them.
Yeah.
And that's a mindset, in my opinion. That's an ability to get out of a selfish mindset of like, what can I get from me and how can I contribute and give to others? So I would say those are my 3 tips.
And Maya Angelou said people won't remember what you did, they won't remember what you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel.
Absolutely.
And you make them feel good. Check out my next video here. Anyone notice that as that day comes around, they're sick? Because here's how the mind works. You say, oh my God, I volunteered to chair that meeting. I must have been out of my mind. I'd die if I've got to go on stage. I don't want to do that. And your brain's like, leave that with me. Now next Wednesday.